Stop eating eggs. Why is nobody talking about how detrimental eggs are for our health? The number one thing that needs to be cut out when we are healing from chronic illness, but also just in general. Did you know that eggs are used as food in labs to grow viruses and bacteria? And that same reaction that happens in labs happens in our body when we consume eggs.
As more people find out that eggs are oftentimes used in laboratories to grow different viruses or bacteria, the idea that eggs are going to feed viruses and bacteria inside of your body is becoming more popular. So the reason we use eggs is because it's a little bit more ethical than using a live animal. And in this case, we can use an egg to get the exact same information as we would get from a live animal or a human. With that being said, one extremely important thing to know is that the eggs used in laboratories are not the same eggs that you eat. So there are two different types of eggs, fertilized and unfertilized eggs. You see, given the right nutrition, hens, which are female chickens, can continue to produce eggs without the presence of a male chicken called a rooster. With that being said, these eggs are unfertilized eggs, meaning they cannot become chickens. And this is because it is the sperm of the rooster that will fertilize an egg, allowing an embryo to grow. And this is one of the reasons why we don't open our fridge and find out that our eggs have spontaneously hatched into full-grown chicks, because the eggs that we eat are unfertilized. But in the laboratory setting, they used fertilized eggs that have an embryo inside of them. And in the case of the recent COVID virus, these fertilized eggs were actually used to understand the antibodies that fight against the COVID virus. And this is because when incubated for a long enough period of time, these fertilized eggs can actually mount an immune response the same way that a chicken or human would mount an immune response, and produce antibodies against the COVID virus. And these antibodies can be used to understand the virus better and possibly as treatment for the virus. So in some way, the eggs are actually fighting against the virus and not housing it and allowing it to proliferate. But that's kind of besides the point, because those aren't even the eggs that we eat. With that being said, it is true that raw eggs have the potential to develop bacteria. But this is not specific to eggs, it's specific to all raw foods. Pretty much everything around us, if it hasn't been disinfected, including all the food that you eat, all the clothes that you wear, and even your own skin, is going to contain bacteria. With that being said, we have two very important mechanisms to get rid of any sort of bacteria on our food. The first is cooking, which is why it's definitely recommended to cook your eggs rather than eating them raw. And the second is the fact that we have an extremely acidic stomach that will kill just about all of the bacteria on our food, which is why we can continue to ingest food that has bacteria on it on a daily basis and not get bacterial infections. And if researchers really wanted to, they could likely take different fruits, vegetables, or animal proteins to grow a virus. However, doing it inside of an egg, because of the shell that surrounds the egg, and the different membranes and compartments inside of an egg, it's much easier to control and study the virus. With that being said, when we digest an egg, it's broken down into the same components as every other food that we eat. And when it's absorbed into our bloodstream as amino acids, fatty acids, sugars, the constituent water, cholesterol, micronutrients, and trace elements, it's in the exact same form as any other food that we eat, including fruits, vegetables, meat, legumes, popcorn, or whatever you want to eat. So the moral of the story is that just because eggs are used in laboratory settings to help house bacteria and viruses, does not mean that there's any ability for them to feed viruses and pathogens inside of our body. And one helpful take-home point is the fact that cooking food reduces your risk of bacterial infection. Which is why, although some people prefer raw food, if you want to reduce your risk of pathogens and infections, eating a cooked food diet would likely be more beneficial. And if you want to learn how to take control of your health and energy and avoid a lot of the misinformation online, send me a DM to sign up for coaching.